I'm Joshua, 35, and last Christmas, I watched my 10-year-old niece spit on my daughter while my entire family stood there and laughed. Before I tell you how I wiped that grin off my brother's face and cost him nearly 100 grand in less than 10 seconds, do me a favor. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments. I always like to see who's listening. You know that feeling when the air in a room is so thick with fake niceties you can practically taste the staleness? That was my parents' living room in Ohio, December 25th. The heat was cranked up way too high, probably to compensate for the drafty windows I'd been promising to pay to replace next spring. The smell of overcooked ham and cheap cinnamon candles was suffocating. I was sitting on the edge of the beige recliner, the one with the broken spring that dug into your hip if you sat too far back. My daughter, Sophia, was on the floor near the tree. She's 8. I adopted her 3 years ago. She has these big, watchful eyes that always seem to be scanning the room for danger, a habit she picked up before she came to me. She was wearing a red velvet dress with a white collar. We'd picked it out together at the mall. She felt like a princess in it. Then there was my brother, Mason, the golden child. He was 38, 3 years older than me, but he still acted like the high school quarterback who peaked at 17. He was lounging on the main sofa, swirling a glass of expensive bourbon I had bought for Dad as a gift, like he owned the place. His car keys were tossed carelessly on the coffee table. Porsche key fob. Leased. I knew it was leased. But to Mom and Dad, that plastic fob was a symbol that their Mason had made it. Ava, his 10-year-old daughter, was bored. You could see it in the way she kicked the legs of the antique table. She had that look kids get when they've been given too much sugar and not enough discipline. She walked over to where Sophia was quietly coloring a picture of a snowman. I was watching. I'm always watching when Sophia is around them. That's ugly, Ava said. Her voice wasn't a whisper. It was a statement. Sophia didn't look up. She just pulled her knees closer to her chest. It's for Grandpa, she said softly. Grandpa doesn't want your trash, Ava sneered. He only likes real drawings from real grandkids. The room went quiet. The TV was playing the parade, but nobody was watching. My mother was in the kitchen doorway, wiping a dish. My dad was in his armchair. Mason was right there. They all heard it. Ava, I said, my voice warning. But Ava wasn't looking at me. She was looking down at Sophia, who was now trembling. Ava leaned forward, made a noise in the back of her throat, that distinct, wet sound, and spat. A glob of saliva landed right on the white collar of Sophia's velvet dress. It was like time stopped. The wet spot soaked into the fabric instantly. Sophia froze. She didn't cry immediately. She just looked at the spit, then up at Ava, her face crumbling in confusion and shame. Santa skips kids like you, Ava announced, loud and proud. Because you don't have real parents. I waited. In that split second, I waited for the village. I waited for my mother to drop the dish and rush over. I waited for my father to roar from his chair. I waited for Mason to grab his daughter by the arm and march her to the bathroom for a timeout. Instead, silence. Then, a sound that cut me deeper than a knife. A chuckle. I turned my head. Mason was grinning. He took a sip of the bourbon. She's not wrong, he said, shrugging his shoulders as he looked at me. Santa has rules, Josh. You know how kids are. She's just joking. Don't be so sensitive. My mother laughed nervously. Oh, stop it, you two. Ava, be nice. Mason, pour me some wine. That was it. Be nice. No apology. No towel to wipe my daughter's dress. Just be nice. Like Ava had accidentally bumped a table. I looked at the fireplace mantel. There were 5 stockings hanging there. Mom, Dad, Mason, Ava, and Mason's wife, who wasn't even here. She was at a spa day I suspected I had indirectly paid for. Where was Sophia's? I saw a crooked nail on the far left. Empty. Where is Sophia's stocking? I asked. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Calm. Too calm. Like the center of a hurricane. Mom fluttered her hand. Oh, I couldn't find it, Joshua. I think the dog got it last year. We'll get her a new one next time. Next time. I looked at Sophia. She was wiping the spit with her sleeve, smearing it into the velvet. She wasn't looking at the tree anymore. She was staring at her shoes, trying to make herself small, trying to disappear. Something inside my chest clicked. It was a physical sensation, like a heavy iron door slamming shut and locking. The part of me that was the dutiful son, the younger brother, the peacekeeper, it died right there on that beige carpet. I stood up. "Come on, Sophia." Mason rolled his eyes. "Here we go." The drama queen exits the stage. I ignored him. I walked over, picked up Sophia's coat, and helped her into it. I grabbed my own jacket. "Joshua, sit down," Dad barked. He levered himself out of his chair and moved to the hallway, blocking the front door. He was a big man used to being obeyed. "You are not leaving in the middle of Christmas. You're being dramatic." It was a spat between kids. "Don't ruin your Mother's Day." A spat. I looked at my father. She spit on her. And Mason laughed. "Mason is your brother," Dad said, his voice dropping to that low growl he used to intimidate me when I was 16. "Family sticks together. Now take your coat off, sit down, and eat some ham. Stop acting like a woman." I looked at him. I looked at Mason, who was smirking, waiting for me to fold, waiting for me to do what I always did, apologize for being upset, sit down, and write them a check later to smooth things over. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. "What are you doing?" Mason asked, sounding bored. "Calling your therapist?" "No," I said. I held the phone up so Face ID could unlock it. My thumb hovered over an app icon. A blue icon with a graduation cap. The 529 College Savings Plan app. "I'm updating the trust fund for her college." The room went deadly silent. The kind of silence where you can hear a pin drop. Mason sat up straighter. The smirk vanished. "What trust fund?" "The one I started for Ava when she was born," I said, my voice steady. "The one I've been putting $500 a month into for 10 years. Plus the bonuses. Plus the aggressive tech stock portfolio I managed for it." Mason's eyes widened. He knew I helped out, but he never asked about the details. He just assumed the money would be there like magic, like everything else in his life. "You can't touch that," Mason said, his voice rising. "That's Ava's money." "Actually," I said, tapping the screen, "I'm the account owner. Ava is just the beneficiary. And the cool thing about 529 plans in Ohio? The owner can change the beneficiary to another qualifying family member at any time. Penalty-free." I tapped the screen. "Change beneficiary." "Don't you dare," Mason said. He put his glass down on the table so hard it cracked. "Who are you changing it to?" Mom gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. I looked at Sophia, who was watching me with wide, fearful eyes. "To someone who actually appreciates it. To someone who doesn't spit on people." I typed in the name, Sophia Johnson. I entered her social security number from memory. I didn't need to look it up. I'm her father. I know her number better than I know my own. "Joshua, stop," Dad shouted, taking a step toward me. "You are stealing from your niece." "I'm not stealing anything," I said. "I'm reallocating my investment." Mason lunged off the couch. He moved fast for a guy who'd had 3 bourbons. "Give me that phone." I hit submit. A little green checkmark appeared on my screen. Beneficiary change confirmed. Mason was 3 feet away when a sound stopped him cold. BZZZZT. His phone, lying on the coffee table where he'd tossed it next to the Porsche keys, vibrated violently. Then it pinged. A specific, loud notification tone he had set for financial alerts. He froze. He looked at me, then back at the phone. "Check your email, Mason," I said softly. He scrambled back to the table, fumbling with the device. His face was red, sweating. He unlocked it. I watched his eyes scan the screen. I watched the color drain out of his face until he looked like a ghost. $86,000. He whispered. His voice was trembling. "It says balance 0. Mason looked up from his phone, and the look in his eyes wasn't just anger. It was terror. Pure, unadulterated panic. You took 86 grand? He choked out. I moved my money. I corrected him. Come on, Sophia. I didn't wait for Dad to move. I walked straight toward him. For the first time in my life, I didn't shrink. I looked him dead in the eye. He must have seen something new in my face because he stepped aside. He actually stepped aside. We walked out into the cold Ohio air. It was gray and biting, the kind of cold that hurts your lungs. But to me, it felt like the freshest air I had ever breathed. I buckled Sophia into her booster seat in the back of my 5-year-old Honda Accord. Daddy? She whispered as I got into the driver's seat. Yeah, baby? I started the engine. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles were white. Did I do something wrong? That question broke me. I had to close my eyes for a second. I took a deep breath, fighting back the sting of tears. I turned around to face her. No, Sophia, you did nothing wrong. Not a single thing. Some people are just broken, and we aren't going to let them break us. Okay? She nodded, though I knew she didn't fully understand. She just knew that we were leaving Grandma's house early and there were no presents. As I pulled out of the driveway, I glanced in the rearview mirror. I saw the front door open. Mason was standing there in his socks, screaming something I couldn't hear, waving his phone in the air. I turned onto the main road and didn't look back. The drive home was quiet. The only sound was the heater humming and the tires on the wet pavement. My mind, however, was racing. It was rewinding through 10 years of stupidity. My stupidity. For years, I had been the family wallet, the safety net, the fixer. I'm a senior financial analyst. My family thinks I'm a manager at a bank. They don't know the difference. They don't know that I manage portfolios for high-net-worth individuals. They don't know that my salary is just a fraction of what I make from commissions and my own private investments. I never told them. I drove a Honda. I wore jeans and flannel shirts. I lived in a modest 3-bedroom ranch-style house. Why? Because I wanted them to love me for me, not for what I could buy them. But looking back, I realized they never loved me. They loved what I did for them. I thought about the furnace 2 winters ago. Dad called me at 2 a.m. The house is freezing, Josh. Your mother is shivering. I paid for the emergency repair and the new unit for $1,000. Dad said, I'll pay you back when the pension check clears. He never did. I never asked. I thought about the basement flooding last spring. Mason called that time. Mom and Dad are freaking out, man. There's water everywhere. I took 2 days off work, hired a crew, and paid the $3,000 bill. Mason showed up when the work was done, drank a beer, and told Dad he had supervised the crew while I was on a conference call. Dad patted him on the back and said, Good job, son. And the car insurance, the groceries, the loans for Mason's business ideas that always failed. But money is renewable. You can make more money. What you can't make more of is dignity. And that's what they had been stealing from Sophia since the day I brought her home. I remembered the day I finalized the adoption. I was beaming. I brought Sophia to meet them. She was 5 then, clutching a raggedy teddy bear. Mom looked at her and said, She's cute, but are you sure you want to do this alone? You know, you could still meet a nice girl and have children of your own. Real children. Real children. I should have left then. But I didn't. I wanted my daughter to have grandparents. I wanted to believe they would come around. So I tried to buy their affection. I started the college fund for Ava when she was born because Mason was between jobs, which he always was, and I wanted to be the good uncle. I set up an automatic transfer, $500 every month like clockwork. But I didn't just let it sit in a savings account. I invested it. I treated Ava's college fund like one of my client portfolios. I bought into tech startups. I rode the wave of the market recovery. That $86,000 wasn't just savings. It was a masterpiece of compound interest and smart trading. It was enough to cover 4 years at a state university and then some. And Mason knew it was there. He just didn't know how much it had grown. I looked at the dashboard of my Honda. It had 120,000 miles on it. Then I thought about the white Porsche Macan sitting in my parents' driveway. Mason drove a Porsche. I knew he leased it, I knew he couldn't afford the payments. Last Thanksgiving, he had pulled me aside, smelling like cigars, and asked for a short-term bridge loan of $2,000 because of a payroll glitch at his company. I gave it to him. 2 weeks later, he posted a picture on Facebook of the Porsche with the caption, "Hard work pays off. #grindset." I had laughed it off then. I thought, let him have his toy if it makes him feel better. But now the math was different. I wasn't just paying for a car. I was funding the ego of a man who watched his daughter spit on mine and laughed. I glanced at Sophia in the rearview mirror again. She had fallen asleep, her head lolling against the seatbelt strap. Her face was still streaked with dried tears. The spot on her dress had dried into a stiff, dark stain. Rage, cold and sharp, flooded my veins. I wasn't just going to take the college fund. That was just the opening move. I was going to audit my entire relationship with these people. I reached for my phone again. It was mounted on the dash, and tapped the Bluetooth call button. "Call Elijah," I said. Elijah wasn't just my lawyer. He was my best friend from college. He was the only one who knew exactly how much I was worth. He was the one who handled my divorce 3 years ago when my ex-wife decided she didn't want to be a stepmother to a foster kid. Elijah was a shark in a suit, but he had a soft spot for Sophia. The phone rang twice. "Merry Christmas, you filthy animal." Elijah's voice boomed through the car speakers. "Why are you calling me? You should be eating dry turkey and pretending to like your brother." "I need you to open a file," I said. My voice was devoid of holiday cheer. Elijah's tone changed instantly. He went from friend to lawyer in a heartbeat. "Talk to me. What happened?" "I just pulled the plug on the 529 plan. Transferred everything to Sophia." "The one for Ava?" Elijah whistled low. "That's a big hit, Josh. Mason is going to lose his mind. Legally, you're in the clear. We structured that account with you as the sole custodian for this exact reason. But socially, you just dropped a nuke." He laughed. "Elijah. What?" "Ava spit on Sophia. Right on her Christmas dress. She told Sophia that Santa skips kids like her because she doesn't have real parents." And Mason laughed. He said she wasn't wrong. There was a silence on the other end of the line. I could hear Elijah shifting in his chair. "Okay," Elijah said. His voice was ice cold now. "Forget the nuke. We're going scorched earth. What do you need?" "I need you to pull the public records on Mason's finances. Everything. Liens, judgments, credit cards. And check the title on Mom and Dad's house." "Why the house?" "Because Dad made a comment a few months ago about signing some papers for Mason to help him expand his business. I want to know what they signed." "I'm on it," Elijah said. "I can't get official reports until the courthouse opens, but I have my ways of checking the digital filings. Give me an hour." "And Elijah?" "Yeah. If they show up at my house, be ready. I'll draft a trespass notice while I drink my eggnog," Elijah said. "Drive safe, Josh." I hung up. I was 10 minutes from home when my phone started buzzing again. It wasn't a call this time. It was a text bomb. Ping, ping, ping. I glanced at the screen. "Mom, Joshua, please come back. You're scaring everyone. Mason is crying." "Dad, you ungrateful brat. Turn that car around and fix this account right now or don't bother coming to Easter." "Mason, you thief. That money is for Ava. I will sue you. I swear to God I will sue you." "Mason, pick up the phone. Coward." "Mason, I know where you live." I let out a dry, humorless laugh. Of course he knew where I lived. I paid for the new roof on his house last year when a tree branch fell on it. I pulled into my driveway. My house was dark, peaceful. It was a sanctuary. I turned off the car. "Sophia, honey," I said gently, unbuckling her. "We're home. Let's go make some real hot chocolate. With the big marshmallows." She woke up groggily. "The ones from the jar?" "The ones from the jar," I promised. We went inside. I locked the door behind us. I threw the deadbolt. Then I engaged the security system I had installed a year ago. I stripped off my coat. I took Sophia's velvet dress, the one with the spit stain, and I put it in the washing machine. I poured half a cup of detergent on it, watching the blue liquid cover the velvet. I wanted to wash the memory away. As the machine started to churn, I went into the kitchen. I made the hot chocolate. We sat on the couch and watched Home Alone. Sophia laughed when the burglars fell down the stairs. It was the first time she had smiled all day. But while she watched the movie, I was on my laptop. I logged into my online banking. Transfer to Mom, weekly grocery stipend $150. Status: pending. I clicked cancel. Transfer to Dad, prescription copay assistance $200. Status: scheduled. I clicked cancel. Autopay: Mason's car insurance, added to my family plan, temporarily, 2 years ago. I clicked remove vehicle. I went through the list. Netflix password shared with Mason, password changed. The family cell phone plan where I paid for 5 lines? Suspend lines. Mason, Mom, Dad. I was systematic. I was surgical. I didn't feel guilty. I felt like a surgeon cutting out gangrene. Around 9 p.m., my phone rang again. It was Elijah. I picked up on the first ring. Tell me. It's worse than you thought, Josh, Elijah said. I pulled the property records. There's a second mortgage on your parents' house. Took out 6 months ago. How much? $200,000. High-interest lender. Predatory stuff. My stomach dropped. And the co-signer? Mason Johnson. Where did the money go, Elijah? Well, I cross-referenced with some UCC filings. It looks like Mason used it to cover margin calls on a crypto trading account that went bust and, wait for it, to put a down payment on a commercial lease for a consulting firm that lists him as CEO. Oh, and the Porsche? It's not leased in his name. It's leased in the company name, backed by the house equity. I closed my eyes. The idiot. The absolute, unmitigated idiot. He had bet the farm literally on his ability to play day trader, and he had lost. So, I said, my voice quiet. He needed that college fund money. He didn't just want it for Ava's future. He needed it now. Exactly, Elijah said. The fund rules say you can withdraw for non-educational purposes with a 10% penalty plus taxes. He was probably planning to cash it out, take the hit, and use the remaining 60 grand to stop the bleeding on the house payments before your parents found out. But he couldn't cash it out because I was the owner, I said. Right? But he had view access. He was probably using that account statement to show his creditors he had assets, promising them he'd liquidate it soon. You moving the money didn't just take away his safety net. It exposed his lie. He's drowning, I realized. He's not just drowning, Josh. He's got concrete shoes, and he just realized you're the only one with a knife to cut the rope. And you just walked away with the knife. I looked at Sophia, fast asleep on the couch with a chocolate mustache on her lip. Let him sink, I said. The next morning, the silence from my phone was more terrifying than the buzzing. After the barrage of texts the night before, the sudden radio silence meant one thing. They were strategizing, or traveling. I woke up early, around 6 a.m. Sophia was still asleep in her room, hugging her giant stuffed bear. I made coffee, strong black coffee, and sat at my kitchen island. I opened my laptop again. I checked my email. There was a notification from the cell phone provider. 3 lines suspended as requested. I smiled grimly. That meant right now Mason, Mom, and Dad were waking up to phones that couldn't make calls or use data. They would have to use Wi-Fi. I opened my investment portfolio. The market was up. My personal net worth was sitting comfortably in the mid-7 figures. I had worked 80-hour weeks for a decade to build this. I had skipped vacations. I had driven a used car. I had saved. And they thought I was the failure. At 8 a.m., Sophia shuffled into the kitchen, rubbing her eyes. Is Grandma coming over today? She asked. Usually, on the day after Christmas, Mom would come over to drop off leftovers, which was usually just the ham bone she didn't want to throw away, and critique my housekeeping. No, sweetie, I said, pouring her a glass of orange juice. Grandma is busy today. It's just us. I was thinking, Lego marathon. Sophia's eyes lit up. Can we build the castle? The big one, We can build the biggest castle in the world, I said. And we're going to build a moat around it. With dragons. To keep the bad guys out? She asked. Exactly. To keep the bad guys out. We spent the morning on the living room floor, surrounded by thousands of plastic bricks. It was peaceful. For the first time in years, I wasn't checking my phone every 5 minutes to see if Mom needed help with her iPad or if Dad needed me to look up a symptom on WebMD. I was just a dad. But the storm was gathering. Around 10:30 a.m., I got a notification from my doorbell camera. I pulled up the app on my phone. A white Porsche Macan was pulling into my driveway. But it didn't pull in normally. It came in fast, too fast, and swerved onto the grass, carving deep ruts into my dormant winter lawn. Stay here, Sophia, I said, my voice calm but firm. Put your headphones on. Watch the iPad. Is it Uncle Mason? She asked, looking scared. Put the headphones on, honey. Loud. She obeyed. She trusted me. I walked to the front window. Mason got out of the driver's side. He looked like hell. His eyes were puffy, his clothes were rumpled, the same clothes he was wearing yesterday. Dad got out of the passenger side. He looked older today, his face gray and drawn. Mom climbed out of the back, clutching her purse to her chest like a shield. They were marching toward my front door. I didn't open it immediately. I watched them on the camera feed. Mason was pounding on the door. Thud, thud, thud. Joshua, open this damn door. I checked my pocket. Phone recording? Yes. I took a deep breath. This was it. The bridge wasn't just burning. It was about to collapse into the river. I unlocked the door and swung it open. I didn't step back. I stood in the threshold, filling the frame. Get your car off my grass, I said. That was my greeting. You listen to me? Mason started, pushing forward. No. I cut him off. You listen. You are trespassing. I have a child inside. If you shout, if you curse, if you scare her, I will call the police. And seeing as you're driving a car with expired registration, I had checked that this morning, too. Elijah was thorough. Mason froze. He blinked. How did you? Move the car, Mason, I said, or I call the tow truck. He stared at me with pure hatred, but he turned around, got in the car, and reversed it off the lawn. He parked it in the street, half blocking my driveway. Petty. He stormed back up the walk. Dad and Mom were standing behind him now. We need to talk, Dad said. He was holding a bakery box. I recognized the logo. It was from the grocery store. Day old donuts. A peace offering? No, a bribe. You can talk from there, I said, leaning against the doorframe. Let us in, Joshua, Mom pleaded. Her voice was trembling. It's freezing out here. We're family. Family doesn't spit on family, I said. Oh, for God's sake, are you still on that? Mason snapped. It was a joke. A kid's joke. You stole $90,000 from my daughter because you can't take a joke. I didn't steal anything. I changed the beneficiary on my account. That money was for Ava, Mason screamed. You promised. I promised to help with her education, I said calmly. I didn't promise to fund the lifestyle of a man who mocks my daughter. And by the way, Mason, why are you so desperate? The kid is 10. She doesn't need tuition money for 8 years. Unless. I let the word hang in the air. Unless. Mason's eyes darted to Mom and Dad. He looked terrified. Unless what? Dad asked, looking between us. What is he talking about, Mason? Nothing, Mason said quickly. He's just trying to change the subject. He's jealous, Dad. He's always been jealous because I have a real family and he has a charity case. I saw red, but I didn't yell. I smiled. It was a cold, dangerous smile. A charity case, I repeated. You know it's true, Mason sneered, gaining confidence because Dad wasn't correcting him. You play house with that kid, pretending you're a dad, but you're just a glorified babysitter. And now you're stealing from your own blood to pay for her. Mason, Mom said, shocking me. That's enough. No, let him speak, I said. I want to hear it all. You want to hear it? Mason stepped closer into my personal space. Fine. You're a loser, Josh. You drive a Honda. You count coupons. You act like you're so holy, but you're just cheap. You have no idea what it takes to live in the real world, to maintain a lifestyle, to be successful. You hoard your little pennies while I'm out there making moves. And now you're going to go into that app and you're going to put that money back in Ava's name. Right? Now. Or what? I asked. Or I sue you, Mason said. I'll sue you for fraud. I'll sue you for emotional distress. I'll take everything you have. I laughed. I actually laughed. You're going to sue me? I asked. With what money, Mason? The money you don't have. I have plenty of money. Really? Is that why you took a second mortgage on Mom and Dad's house? The silence that followed was absolute. Dad turned his head slowly to look at Mason. What did he say? Mason's face went white. He's lying. He's making things up. Am I? I pulled my phone out. I opened the email Elijah had sent me. According to the county recorder's office, on July 14th, a lien was placed on the property at 42 Maple Street. Borrowers, Robert and Sarah Johnson. Cosigner, Mason Johnson. Amount, $200,000. Mom gasped. She grabbed Dad's arm. Robert, did you sign anything? Dad looked confused. I signed some papers for Mason's business loan. He said it was just a character reference. He said the house was just listed as an address. I looked at my father with pity. He lied to you, Dad. He put your house up as collateral. If he defaults on the loan, the bank takes your home. The home you've lived in for 40 years. That's not true, Mason shouted, but his voice cracked. It was an investment. The consulting firm is going to take off. I just needed liquidity. And the Porsche? I asked ruthlessly. Leased through the company, right? Using the loan money? Mason didn't answer. He was breathing hard, looking like a trapped animal. You, Dad whispered. He looked at Mason with a horror I had never seen before. You gambled our house. I didn't gamble it. It's business, Mason yelled. And it would have been fine if he hadn't stolen my safety net. He pointed at me. I was going to pay it back. I just needed the trust fund to cover the monthly installments until the big contract came in. It was a bridge loan. So you were going to cash it out, I said. You were going to take Ava's college money. Money I saved for 10 years, and use it to pay for your mistake. And you were going to pay the penalty and taxes. It's my money, Mason shrieked. It's my money, I roared. My voice echoed down the street. I earned it. I saved it. I invested it. And yesterday, I decided I was done investing in people who treat me like dirt. I looked at Mom and Dad. They looked small, shrunken. The image of their golden child was crumbling before their eyes. Mom, I said softer. Check your phone. My phone isn't working, she whispered. I know. I cut the plan. And the grocery money? That stopped today. The prescription money for Dad? Stopped. The car insurance for Mason? Canceled. Joshua, Mom cried, tears streaming down her face. You can't do that. We're your parents. And I'm a parent too, I said. But yesterday you watched my child get spit on, and you stood there. You let Mason laugh. You let Ava say she wasn't part of this family. I stepped back and put my hand on the doorknob. You were right, Ava. She isn't part of your family. And neither am I. I slammed the door. I locked it. I leaned my forehead against the cold wood of the door, breathing hard. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I could hear them outside. Mom was sobbing. Dad was shouting at Mason. Mason was screaming obscenities at the door. But inside, it was quiet. I turned around. Sophia was standing in the hallway entrance, her headphones around her neck. She had taken them off. Daddy? She asked, her voice trembling. Why is Grandma crying? I walked over to her and scooped her up. She was getting too big to carry, but in that moment, I needed to hold her. I carried her back to the couch. Grandma is sad because she made a mistake. I said. A big mistake. And now she has to fix it. Are they mad at me? Sophia asked. No, I said fiercely. No one is mad at you. This is grown-up stuff. It has nothing to do with you. I spent the next hour distracting her. We built the castle. We watched cartoons. But my mind was outside on the lawn, and in the courthouse records Elijah was digging through. Around noon, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. A 212 area code. New York. I frowned. I usually let unknown numbers go to voicemail, but something told me to answer this. This is Joshua, I answered. Joshua Johnson? A deep, authoritative voice. This is Arthur Sterling. I froze. Arthur Sterling was one of my biggest clients. A billionaire industrialist who trusted me with a portfolio worth more than my entire extended family's lifetime earnings combined. Mr. Sterling, I said, switching instantly into professional mode. Is everything all right? Did you get the quarterly report? Report looks fantastic, Josh. As always, that's why I'm calling. I'm in Cleveland. My jet just landed at Burke Lakefront. I have a layover before heading to Chicago, and I realized I've never shaken the hand of the man who made me 12% in a down market. He was here, in Cleveland. Oh, I stammered. I'm honored, sir. But today is, well, it's the day after Christmas. I'm not in the office. I know. I have a car. I can come to you. Buy you a coffee? Or a beer? I've got about 2 hours. I looked around my living room. It was clean, but it was covered in Legos. And outside my family might still be lurking. Actually, sir, my house is a bit of a war zone. Family drama, I said honestly. Sterling was a no-nonsense guy. He appreciated bluntness. Sterling laughed. Family drama. I know it well. My ex-wife is currently suing me for a boat I sold in 1998. Listen, I'm 10 minutes away. I'll stop by, shake your hand, and leave you to it. Text me the address. I hesitated. Then I thought, why not? Okay, I said. I texted him the address. 20 minutes later, a black Rolls-Royce Cullinan pulled into my driveway, right where Mason's Porsche had swerved onto the grass. I looked out the window. My neighbors were peeking out from behind their curtains. This was a working-class neighborhood. We saw Fords and Chevys. We didn't see Rolls-Royces. The driver opened the back door, and Arthur Sterling stepped out. He was in his 60s, wearing a cashmere coat that probably cost more than my car. I opened the front door. Joshua, he boomed, extending a hand. Mr. Sterling. I shook it. Please come in. Sorry about the Legos. Legos are good. Signs of life. He walked in, looking around my modest home with genuine interest. He spotted Sophia peeking from the hallway. And this must be the reason you work so hard. This is Sophia, I said. Sophia, this is Mr. Sterling. He's a friend from work. Hi, Sophia whispered. Hello, young lady, Sterling said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a gold coin. A solid gold Krugerrand. He probably carried them around as tips. Here, a late Christmas present. Don't spend it all in one place. Sophia's eyes went wide. She looked at me. I nodded. Thank you, she squeaked. Just then, there was a pounding on the door again. I closed my eyes. No, not now. Joshua. It was Mason. He had come back, and he sounded drunk. Open the door. I know you're in there. I saw the fancy car. Who is it? Your divorce lawyer. Sterling looked at the door, then at me. He raised an eyebrow. Problem? My brother, I sighed. The one causing the drama. I see, Sterling said. He didn't look annoyed. He looked amused. Shall we handle it? I'll handle it, I said. I opened the door. Mason was there. He was alone this time. He was swaying slightly. He stared at the Rolls-Royce in the driveway, then at me. Who's in there? Mason slurred. You selling drugs now, Josh? Is that how you have money? Mason, go home, I said tiredly. Not until you give me the money. He tried to push past me. Sterling stepped into the doorway. He was taller than Mason, and despite his age, he radiated a kind of power that made Mason stop cold. "I don't think you want to do that, son," Sterling said. His voice was calm, but it had the weight of steel. Mason blinked. He looked at Sterling's expensive coat, his watch, his demeanor. Who are you?" "I'm Joshua's partner," Sterling said. Technically, it wasn't true. I was his portfolio manager. But in the finance world, partner could mean anything. Mason's jaw dropped. "Partner? You work at the bank branch." Sterling laughed. A deep, rich laugh. "Bank branch? No. Joshua manages my private equity holdings. And considering he manages about $50 million of my capital, I'd advise you to treat him with a bit more respect. He's one of the sharpest minds in the Midwest." Mason looked at me. He looked like he had been slapped. $50 million? "Joshua didn't tell you?" Sterling asked, glancing at me with a smirk. "He's too humble. He's a whale, son. Quiet whale. But a whale nonetheless." Mason looked at me with new eyes. Not eyes of a brother, but eyes of a greedy man realizing he had been stepping on a gold mine thinking it was dirt. "Josh," Mason stammered. You have that kind of money?" "Goodbye, Mason," I said. I closed the door. Sterling left about 15 minutes later. He found the whole situation entertaining. Before he got back into his Rolls-Royce, he clapped me on the shoulder. "Family," he said. "Can't live with them, can't legally hunt them for sport. Keep your head up, Josh, and keep making me money." When he left, I felt a strange sense of validation. A billionaire respected me. My own brother thought I was garbage. But the day wasn't over. At 4 p.m., my doorbell rang again. This time it was Elijah. He was holding a thick manila envelope. He looked serious. "You ready for round 2? He asked as he walked in. "What's in the envelope?" "Evidence," Elijah said. "And leverage." I did some deep digging. "It's not just the house, Josh. Mason has forged your signature on a guarantor document for a business line of credit about 3 years ago." I felt the blood drain from my face. "He what?" "It's sloppy," Elijah said, pulling out a paper. "Look, that's clearly not your signature. But the bank accepted it because he used your parents' address, which matched your old credit profile. The loan is in default. They haven't come after you yet because they're going after the primary assets first, Mason's company. But eventually, they would have come knocking." "That bastard," I whispered. "He committed fraud against me." "Felony fraud," Elijah corrected. "And here's the kicker. If we report this, he goes to jail. Minimum 3 years. I stared at the paper. "My brother. Jail. What do you want to do?" Elijah asked. Before I could answer, my phone rang. It was Mom. I hesitated. Then I put it on speaker. "Joshua." Her voice was weak, broken. "I'm here, Mom. Please," she sobbed. "Please come over. Dad is having chest pains. The ambulance is here." Everything stopped. The anger, the money, the fraud. It all vanished. "I'm coming," I said. I grabbed Sophia and Elijah. "We have to go. Dad's sick." We drove to my parents' house. The ambulance was in the driveway, lights flashing but no siren. That was usually a good sign. I ran inside, leaving Sophia with Elijah in the car. The living room was chaotic. Paramedics were tending to Dad, who was sitting in his recliner, looking pale and sweaty. Mom was hovering, weeping. Mason was sitting on the sofa, head in his hands. "Vital signs are stable," the paramedic said as I rushed in. "It looks like a panic attack mimicking angina. Stress-induced. His blood pressure is through the roof, though." I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Panic attack, not a heart attack. I looked at Dad. He looked at me, and his eyes filled with tears. "Josh," he wheezed. "The house. They're going to take the house." I looked at Mason. He didn't look up. "Why, Mason?" I asked. My voice was quiet, deadly. Mason looked up. His eyes were red. "I thought I could fix it. I thought If I just looked successful, the success would come. I just needed time. You used Mom and Dad's home as a gambling chip, I said. And you forged my signature on a loan. Mason flinched. Mom let out a sharp cry. What? Elijah found it, I said, throwing the manila envelope on the coffee table. 3 years ago, a business line of credit. You signed my name as a guarantor. That's why you never wanted me to see the mail when I came over. I paid the interest, Mason stammered. Mostly. You committed a felony, I said. I could send you to prison right now. Mom threw herself at my feet, literally at my feet. She grabbed my hand. Joshua, no. He's your brother. Please, don't send him to jail. He has children. He has children he teaches to spit on mine, I said, pulling my hand away. I looked at the room. This was my family. A father broken by his favorite son's greed. A mother begging for the criminal who ruined them. And the criminal himself, a coward who couldn't even look me in the eye. Here is what is going to happen, I said. The room went silent. Even the paramedics paused, packing up their gear to listen. I am not going to press charges, I said. Mom sobbed in relief. Mason let out a shaky breath. Wait, I said. I'm not done. I pointed at Mason. You are going to sign over your share of the inheritance, this house, whatever is left of it, to me, today. Elijah has the papers in the car. But, Mason started. Shut up, I snapped. You have negative equity anyway. But I want it on paper so you can never come back for it. Second, I continued, you are going to sell the Porsche. Tomorrow. Whatever cash you get, you give to Dad to pay the immediate arrears on the mortgage. And third, I looked at Mom and Dad. I will buy the lien from the bank. I'll pay off the $200,000 debt. Mom cried harder. Oh, Joshua. Thank you. Thank you. I knew you were. I'm not doing it for you. I cut her off. I'm doing it so you don't end up homeless and on my doorstep. But here is the condition. I leaned in close. The house is mine now. You can live in it until you die. But Mason, I pointed a finger at my brother. He is not allowed in this house again. Not for Christmas. Not for Thanksgiving. Not for birthdays. Joshua, you can't. Mom started. That is the deal, I said. I pay the debt. Mason gets banned. If I see his car in the driveway, if I hear he was here for dinner, I foreclose. And I will put you out on the street. I looked at Dad. Do you accept? Dad looked at Mason. He looked at the walls of the house he had built his life in. He looked at me, the son he had ignored for decades, who was now the only thing standing between him and ruin. I accept, Dad whispered. Dad, Mason cried. You can't be serious. Get out, Dad said. His voice was weak, but firm. What? Get out, Mason, Dad said, closing his eyes. Do what your brother says. Get out. Mason stood up. He looked at us all. He tried to muster some of his old arrogance, but it was gone. He was a man with nothing. No money, no status, no family support. He walked to the door. He paused, looking back at me. You always wanted to be the favorite, he spat. No, I said. I just wanted to be a father. Something you clearly don't know how to be. He left. The door slammed. This was the moment that changed everything. The moment I realized that family isn't a suicide pact. I took control. I protected my daughter. If you've ever had to stand up to a toxic family member, you know how hard this was. Thank you for listening this far. Please, hit that like button and comment the number 1 below so I know you're with me. Your support helps more people find this story and realize they aren't alone. It means the world to me. Now, let me tell you what happened next. The silence after Mason left was different from the silence before. It wasn't the silence of secrets. It was the silence of a vacuum. The golden idol had been smashed, and now we were just standing in the rubble. The paramedics finished checking Dad. Blood pressure is coming down, one of them said. Rest. No stress. See your cardiologist tomorrow. They left. I stood in the center of the living room. Mom was sitting on the arm of Dad's chair, holding his hand. They looked old, fragile. For the first time, I didn't feel the urge to fix them emotionally. I had fixed the financial problem, but the rest? That wasn't my job anymore. "Where is Sophia?" Mom asked quietly. "In the car," I said. "With Elijah. Can I see her?" Mom asked. "I want to apologize." I looked at the woman who had watched my daughter get spit on and said nothing. I looked at the woman who had lost my daughter's stocking. "No," I said. Mom flinched like I had hit her. "Joshua, please." "Respect is action, Mom," I said. "Not words. You can't apologize your way out of what happened yesterday. You have to earn your way back in. And it's going to take a long time." I walked over to the mantel. I reached up and took down the crooked nail where Sophia's stocking should have been. I put it in my pocket. "I'll have Elijah draw up the paperwork for the house lien transfer tomorrow," I said. "Mason will sign the inheritance waiver. If he refuses, I press charges for the fraud. Make sure he understands that." "He'll understand," Dad said. He wasn't looking at me. He was staring at the empty spot where Mason had been sitting. "He has no choice." "Goodbye," I said. I walked out. The cold air hit me again, but this time it didn't feel like an escape. It felt like a victory lap. I got into the car. Elijah was playing I Spy with Sophia. "I spy with my little eye." "Something green," Sophia said. "Is it the tree?" Elijah guessed. "Yes." She giggled. I got in the driver's seat. "Ready to go?" "Is Grandpa okay?" Sophia asked. "Grandpa is going to be fine," I said. "But we aren't going to see them for a while." "Okay?" "That's okay," Sophia said, shrugging. "They don't have good hot chocolate anyway." Elijah chuckled. Kids got taste. We dropped Elijah off at his office. "You're a good man, Josh," he said before he got out. "A scary man when you want to be, but a good man." "Send me the bill," I said. "Family discount," he winked. "You owe me a steak dinner. And maybe a ride in the Rolls-Royce if you see Sterling again." "Deal." That night, back at our quiet, safe house, I tucked Sophia into bed. She was wearing her favorite pajamas with astronauts on them. "Daddy." "Yeah." "Baby, did you really take the money from Ava?" I sat down on the edge of the bed. I had expected this. "I took the money I saved," I explained, "and I put it in an account for you, because I want you to go to college. I want you to be an astronaut or a doctor or an artist. I want you to have choices." "But won't Ava be sad?" Sophia. Even after being spit on, she was worried about her cousin. That was the difference between my daughter and my brother's daughter. That was the difference love made. "Ava has her parents to take care of her," I said gently. "And you have me, and I promise to take care of you. I take my promises very seriously." She smiled, closed her eyes, and was asleep in minutes. I walked out to the kitchen. I poured myself a glass of water. I looked at the empty chairs at my dining table. For years, I had tried to fill those chairs with people who didn't want to be there. I had paid for their presence. I had bought their time. Now the chairs were empty, and I felt rich. I picked up my phone. I opened the 529 app again. Beneficiary, Sophia Johnson. Balance, $86,420.15. I tapped deposit. Amount, $500. Confirm. I watched the balance tick up. The next morning, I woke up to a notification. It wasn't a text from Mom. It wasn't a threat from Mason. It was an email from the county clerk. Property title transfer initiated. Elijah worked fast. I owned the house my parents lived in. I owned the debt that had almost drowned them. I had cut off the leeches. I made coffee. I sat by the window and watched the snow fall. Around 10 a.m., a courier arrived. A delivery for Sophia. I opened the box. Inside was a beautiful hand-knit stocking. It was red and white, thick and warm. And stitched across the top, in clumsy but careful letters, was the name. Sophia. There was a note. Joshua, I found some old yarn. I know it's not enough. I know I can't fix it yet. But I'm starting. Mom. I held the stocking. It was soft. I didn't call her. I didn't text. I walked over to my fireplace, where we didn't have any stockings hung because it was just the two of us. I took a nail. I hammered it into the mantel, and I hung Sophia's stocking. It was a start. Time is a funny thing. When you are suffering, when you are the punching bag, hours feel like years. But when you finally cut the rope, when you finally drop the dead weight that has been dragging you to the bottom of the ocean, time doesn't just fly. It soars. It has been 14 months since the red velvet incident, as Elijah calls it. 14 months since I walked out of my parents' house with my daughter and never looked back. 14 months since I bought the debt that owned my father and turned the tables on the brother who despised me. People ask me if I regret it. They ask if I miss them. I tell them the truth. I miss who I wanted them to be. I don't miss who they are. My life today looks very different from the life of the man who drove a beat-up Honda and ate cold leftovers. I still have the Honda, it's reliable and I'm sentimental, but it's parked next to a slightly more updated SUV that has the highest safety rating on the market. I bought it because Sophia joined a travel soccer team, and I wanted to make sure she was safe on the highway. That's the kind of luxury I care about now. Safety. Peace of mind. We moved, too. We didn't leave the city, but we moved to a neighborhood that has better schools and, more importantly, is 30 minutes further away from Maple Street. It's a nice house. It has a big backyard with an old oak tree that Sophia loves to climb. I hired a contractor to build a treehouse in it, a real one with windows and a little deck. It cost more than I used to spend on groceries in a year, but watching her sit up there reading her books, looking like the queen of her own kingdom, worth every penny. My career took a turn I didn't expect. After Arthur Sterling outed me as a financial whale to my brother, word got around in certain circles. I didn't seek the spotlight, but the spotlight found me. I received a significant promotion at my firm, moving from a senior analyst role to a managing partner position. My salary tripled, but the real money came from the performance bonuses. I was managing Sterling's portfolio openly now, along with 5 other high-net-worth families who wanted the guy who isn't afraid to cut his losses. That became my reputation. Joshua Johnson, the man who knows when to hold and when to fold. But the sweetest victory wasn't the bank account. It was the silence. For the first 6 months, my phone was blissfully quiet. I had blocked Mason on everything. I had set strict boundaries with my parents. But eventually, news trickles in. You can't completely stop the grapevine, especially when you have a cousin like Aunt Catherine who loves to talk. Catherine came over for a barbecue in July. We were sitting on my new patio, watching Sophia run through the sprinklers with Catherine's grandkids. You know, Catherine said, sipping her iced tea, Mason's divorce is final next week. I didn't look up from the grill. I flipped a burger. Is that so? It's ugly, Josh. Really ugly. Sarah, his wife, she took him to the cleaners. Apparently, when the Porsche got repoed and the business loan defaulted, she started digging. She found out about the second mortgage on your parents' house. She found out about the credit cards he opened in her name. Fraud seems to be his love language, I said dryly. She got full custody, Catherine continued. Mason has visitation every other weekend. Supervised. The judge didn't like his temper, or his financial instability. I felt a pang of pity, not for Mason, but for Ava. That little girl who had spit on my daughter was now a casualty of her father's implosion. She was watching her world fall apart. I hoped, truly hoped, that her mother would get her into therapy. And Mason? I asked. Where is he living? In a studio apartment above a garage on the south side, Catherine said. He's working at a car dealership. Used cars. Commission only. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife. The man who mocked my Honda was now trying to sell 2015 Civics to people with bad credit just to pay his rent. And Mom and Dad? I asked. This was the question I always hesitated to ask. They're okay, Catherine said carefully. They're aging, Josh. Fast. The stress of that day. It took something out of them. They live quietly. They're terrified of you, you know? Terrified. They think you're going to kick them out. Every time a letter comes from your lawyer regarding the property tax or the insurance, your dad shakes for an hour. They walk on eggshells in their own house. It's my house, I reminded her. I know, and they know. That's the problem. They're living in a monument to their failure. I set the spatula down. They have a roof over their heads. I pay the mortgage. I pay the taxes. I pay the insurance. All they have to do is buy their own food and keep the utilities on. It's a better deal than they deserve. I know, Catherine sighed. But it's sad. They have photos of you all over the house now. Old ones. High school graduation. The one from the adoption day. They took down the ones of Mason. Too little, too late, I said. But that conversation stuck with me. The power dynamic had shifted so completely that it felt almost cruel. I was the landlord. They were the tenants who had defaulted on their emotional rent years ago. A few months later, in October, I had to go to the property. There was a problem with the main sewer line. As the owner, it was my responsibility. I could have sent a contractor, but the quote seemed high, and I wanted to see the damage myself before approving the work. I didn't tell them I was coming. I just drove over on a Tuesday morning. Pulling onto Maple Street felt like driving into a past life. The trees were turning orange and gold. The air smelled like burning leaves. I pulled into the driveway, my driveway, and parked behind my dad's 10-year-old Buick. The house looked different, smaller. The paint was peeling slightly on the shutters. I made a mental note to hire a painter in the spring. I wouldn't do it myself. I wasn't their handyman anymore. I walked up the steps and rang the bell. Took a long time for the door to open. When it did, my mother stood there. She looked frail. Her hair, which used to be dyed a vibrant chestnut, was now fully gray. She was wearing a cardigan I recognized from 5 years ago. "Joshua?" she gasped. Her hand flew to her throat. Is everything wrong? Are you kicking us out?" That was her first reaction. Fear. Not joy. Fear. "No, Mom," I said, keeping my voice professional. "The plumber sent me a quote for the sewer line. I need to check the basement access." "Oh," she breathed, her shoulders sagging. "Oh, thank God. Come in. Please, come in." I stepped inside. The smell hit me instantly. That mix of old paper, cinnamon candles, and something stale. The house was spotless, but it felt empty. And Catherine was right. The photos were changed. On the mantel, where the stockings used to hang, there were 3 framed photos. One of me receiving my diploma, one of Sophia smiling at the park, and one of me and Sophia together. Mason was gone. Ava was gone. We saw the article about you," Mom said nervously as I walked toward the kitchen. "In the business journal. Dad cut it out. It's on the fridge." I glanced at the refrigerator. There it was, held up by a magnet that said "World's Okayest Mom." A clipping of a profile piece they did on me last month. "The Quiet Strategist, How Joshua Johnson is Redefining Risk Management." "That's nice," I said, not slowing down. I went to the basement. I checked the pipes. I took some photos. I called the plumber and authorized the work. When I came back upstairs, Mom was in the kitchen. She had set a plate on the table. 3 cookies, store-bought, but arranged nicely on a napkin. And a glass of milk. I didn't know if you still liked Oreos," she whispered. "But I bought some, just in case." I looked at the cookies. I looked at her hands, which were twisting nervously in her apron. 10 years ago, I would have sat down. I would have eaten the cookies. I would have written a check for the groceries she clearly needed. I would have tried to buy this moment of connection. But I remembered the spit. I remembered the laughter. "I have to get back to work," I said. Mom's face crumbled. "Just for a minute? Dad is in the backyard raking leaves. He would love to see you. Just to wave." "I'm not here for a visit, Mom. I'm here as the property owner." "We miss you, Joshua." She started to cry. "We miss Sophia. I have that stocking. The one I made. I keep it in my drawer. I look at it every day. You should have looked at her when she was standing in this room, I said. You should have looked at her when your granddaughter treated her like trash. I know, she sobbed. I was weak. I was scared of Mason. He always had such a temper. We just wanted to keep the peace. You didn't keep the peace, I said firmly. You just chose whose war you wanted to fight. You chose to fight me because you thought I was the one who wouldn't fight back. She went silent. She knew it was true. I'm taking care of the plumbing bill, I said. Tell Dad to stop raking leaves if his chest hurts. I'll send a landscaping crew to handle the yard cleanup next week. Don't worry about the cost. You're a good son, she whispered. Better than we deserve. I'm a good father, I corrected her. That's the only title that matters to me now. I walked out. I didn't look at the backyard. I didn't wave to my father. I got in my car and drove away. My hands were shaking as I drove. Not from anger, but from the sheer exhaustion of holding up that wall. It takes energy to be hard. It takes energy to deny your own parents the forgiveness they crave. But I knew that if I gave an inch, they would take a mile. If I sat down for cookies, next week they would ask for a dinner. Then Mason would be accidentally invited. Then the cycle would restart. I broke the cycle. And sometimes, breaking a cycle means breaking your own heart a little bit every day. When I got home, Sophia was waiting for me. She was 9 now, almost 10. She was sitting at the kitchen table working on a science project. Hey, Dad, she chirped. Did you fix the poop pipes? I laughed. The tension in my chest exploded and vanished. Yeah, kiddo. The poop pipes are being handled. Good, she said. Can you help me with this? I need to build a volcano that actually explodes. I'm an expert on explosions, I said, kissing the top of her head. That night, after she went to bed, I went to my office. I opened my safe. Inside, next to my passport and the deed to the rental property on Maple Street, was a thick file. It was my estate plan, my will. I had updated it recently with Elijah. Keywords like inheritance and funeral arrangements are grim, but they are the ultimate language of love. I wanted to make sure there was zero ambiguity. If I died tomorrow, everything, the investment accounts, the insurance policies, the equity in my home, and yes, the house on Maple Street, went into a trust for Sophia. Mason got nothing. Not 1 cent. My parents had a clause, life estate. They could live in the house until they passed away. But they couldn't sell it. They couldn't borrow against it. And once they were gone, the house would be sold, and the proceeds added to Sophia's trust. I was building a fortress around my daughter. A fortress made of paper and ink and compounded interest. But the real test of that fortress came 2 weeks before Christmas. I was at my office, reviewing year-end tax strategies for Sterling, when my receptionist buzzed me. Mr. Johnson, there's a man here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment. He says he's your brother. My stomach tightened. I hadn't seen Mason in over a year. Send security was my first instinct. But then I thought about it. I was in my building, my turf. I had security cameras. I had witnesses. Let him in, I said. But leave the door open and have security on standby in the hallway. A moment later, Mason walked in. He looked diminished. That's the only word for it. The arrogance was gone. He had gained weight, his face was puffy, and his hairline was receding. He was wearing a cheap suit that didn't fit him well. He looked like a man who had been chewed up by the world and spit out. He stood in the doorway of my corner office, looking at the view of the city skyline. The view he probably thought he deserved. Nice place, he said. His voice was rough. What do you want, Mason? I didn't offer him a chair. I heard you got promoted, he said. Managing partner. Big deal. It is a big deal. What do you want? He shifted his weight. He looked down at his scuffed shoes. I need help, Josh. I'm not a bank. I know, he snapped, a flash of the old Mason appearing. Then he reeled it in. I know. I'm not asking for money. Well, I am, but... Look, Sarah is killing me. The child support payments, I can't make them. The job at the dealership is commission only, and the market is dead. If I miss another payment, she's going to petition the court to suspend my visitation rights. She's going to take Ava away from me completely. He looked up at me, and I saw tears in his eyes. Genuine tears. She's my daughter, Josh. She's all I have left. I lost the house. I lost the car. I lost the business. I live in a rat hole. But I love that kid. Please, I just need a loan. $5,000. Just to catch up on the support. I'll sign a promissory note. I'll pay you interest. Whatever you want. I looked at him. I looked at the man who had laughed when his daughter spit on mine. You want me to pay for your child support? I asked. I want you to help me see my kid, he begged. You're a father. You know what it's like. Imagine if someone tried to take Sophia away from you. Someone did try, I said softly. You tried to take her dignity. You tried to take her place in the family. You tried to take her security. I'm sorry, he cried. I was an idiot. I was jealous. I'm sorry. Okay. Is that what you want to hear? I was jealous because you were always the smart one, the steady one, and I was just the one with the big mouth and the big dreams that never worked out. I took it out on you. I took it out on Sophia. It was wrong. I'm paying for it every single day. He wiped his face with his sleeve. Please, Josh, don't let me lose Ava. I sat there for a long time. The silence stretched out, heavy and suffocating. This was the moment where the hero is supposed to be magnanimous. The moment where I write the check and say, be better. But real life isn't a movie. And money doesn't cure character defects. If I paid his support, what happened next month? What happened when he needed rent? What happened when he needed a new suit? I opened my drawer. I pulled out a checkbook. Mason's eyes lit up. He let out a breath of relief. I wrote a check. I tore it out. I held it up. This is a check for $5,000. I said. Thank you, Mason breathed. Thank you, Josh. I swear, I'm not giving it to you, I said. Mason froze. What? I'm making this check payable to Sarah Johnson, I said. And I'm mailing it directly to her lawyer. It will be credited toward your arrears. Okay, Mason said, looking confused. That works. As long as it gets paid. And, I continued, this is a one-time thing. This is not a loan. This is a gift. But not to you. It's a gift to Ava. Because despite everything, she doesn't deserve to lose her father. Even if her father is a loser. Mason flinched, but he nodded. He swallowed his pride because he had to. But here is the price, I said. You have to tell her. Tell who? Ava. Next time you see her, you have to tell her exactly where this money came from. You have to tell her that her Uncle Joshua, the one she spit on, the one she said wasn't real family, he is the reason she gets to see her dad this weekend. Mason stared at me. You want me to humiliate myself to a 10-year-old? I want you to teach her the truth, I said. I want you to break the cycle you started. You taught her that money equals worth, and that cruelty is funny. Now you have to teach her that grace is expensive, and humility is required. Mason looked at the check in my hand. He looked at my face. He saw that I was immovable. Fine, he whispered. I'll tell her. Good. I put the check in an envelope. I'll mail it today. Now get out of my office. He turned to leave. At the door he paused. You really are a whale, aren't you? He muttered. I'm just a guy protecting his investment, I said. And Ava, she's a long-term investment. I hope she turns out better than you. He left. I sat back in my chair. I felt drained, but I also felt clean. I hadn't enabled him. I hadn't let him off the hook. But I hadn't been cruel. I had done what a college fund is supposed to do. I invested in a child's future. Even if that child wasn't mine. Christmas Eve. 1 year later, the snow was falling gently outside, coating the world in a blanket of clean white. Inside my house, the fire was crackling. Real logs this time, not gas. The smell of pine and roasting beef filled the air. It wasn't a crowded party. It was intimate. Elijah was there, wearing a ridiculous sweater with a reindeer that lit up. He was arguing with Arthur Sterling about the best vintage of wine to pair with prime rib. Yes, Arthur Sterling was in my living room. He had become something of a mentor to me over the past year. He didn't have much family left, so he had adopted us. Aunt Catherine was there, too, fussing over the napkins. And Sophia. Sophia was 10 now. She was wearing a new dress, blue silk this time. She looked radiant. She was sitting on the floor, helping Elijah's daughter build a Lego set, a spaceship this time. There was no tension. No one was checking their watch. No one was making passive-aggressive comments about the food or the gifts. "Dinner is served," I announced. We gathered around the table. It was a beautiful oak table I had bought to replace the old IKEA one. I looked at the spread. Prime rib, roasted potatoes, green beans with bacon, and in the center, a chocolate cake that Sophia had decorated herself. It was lopsided and covered in way too many sprinkles, but it was perfect. We sat down. I sat at the head of the table. I looked at the empty chairs. Physically, there were no empty chairs. Every seat was filled with a friend, a mentor, a loved one. But metaphorically, the chairs of my parents and my brother were empty. And for the first time, looking at those metaphorical spaces didn't hurt. Felt like pruning. You cut the dead branches off a tree so the healthy ones can grow. My tree was growing. "Speech!" Elijah yelled, raising his glass. "Speech!" Sterling echoed. I stood up. I held up my glass of wine. I looked at Sophia. She was smiling at me, her eyes bright and full of trust. There was no fear in those eyes anymore. No waiting for the insult. No bracing for the spit. "I don't have a long speech," I said, "but I want to propose a toast." I looked around the room. "To family," I said. "Not the one you're born into. That's just biology. That's just DNA. I'm toasting to the family you choose. The family that shows up. The family that defends you when you're not in the room. The family that hangs your stocking with care." "To chosen family," Sterling said, clinking his glass against mine. "To chosen family," everyone echoed. Sophia stood up then. She looked a little nervous, but she held up her glass of sparkling grape juice. "And to my dad," she said. Her voice was small but clear. "Because he's the bravest knight in the whole kingdom." My throat tightened. I had to blink rapidly to stop the tears. "Here, here," Elijah roared. We ate. We laughed. We told stories. After dinner, we went to the living room to open presents. There was a knock at the door. The room went quiet for a second. Old instincts die hard. I stood up. "I'll get it." I walked to the door. I checked the peephole. It was a courier. I opened the door. "Delivery for Sophia Johnson?" "That's here," I said. I signed for it. It was a small envelope. I brought it inside. "Sophia, this came for you." She opened it. Inside was a card. A handmade card, drawn with markers on construction paper. It was a drawing of a snowman. A messy, lopsided snowman. And written inside, in handwriting I recognized, handwriting that was improving but still childish, was a note. "Dear Sophia, my dad told me what your dad did. He said your dad is a whale. I don't know what that means, but he said you helped us. I'm sorry I spit on you. That was gross and mean. I hope you have a Merry Christmas. Ava. P.S. Santa doesn't skip you." Sophia read the note. She looked up at me. "Ava sent me a card," she whispered. "She did. She said she's sorry." "That's good, baby," I said. "That's really good. Can we send her one back?" Sophia asked. I looked at my daughter, my incredible, forgiving, soft-hearted daughter. She had every right to be bitter. She had every right to hate them. But she didn't. She was better than them. She was better than me. "Yes," I said. "We can send her one back." I looked at the fireplace. There were 5 stockings hanging there this year. One for me. One for Sophia. One for Elijah, he insisted. One for Sterling, who claimed he never got one as a kid. And one for Aunt Catherine. But on the far side, tucked away in the corner, was the red and white knit stocking my mother had sent. I had hung it there, empty. It was a reminder. It reminded me that forgiveness is possible, but access is a privilege. My parents could send stockings. They could send cards. But they couldn't sit at this table. Not yet. Maybe not ever. And I was okay with that. I sat down next to Sterling. He was watching Sophia show her card to Elijah. "You did good, kid," Sterling said quietly. "You protected the asset." "The asset?" I asked. "Her heart," Sterling said, pointing at Sophia. "That's the most valuable thing in this room. You protected it. That's the best return on investment I've ever seen." I smiled. I leaned back in my chair. The fire popped. The lights on the tree twinkled. My brother was in a garage apartment learning humility. My parents were in a quiet house learning regret. And I was here, in a home full of love, learning that I was enough. I looked at the window. The reflection showed a man who looked tired, yes, but happy. A man who was finally, truly, the head of his own household. "Merry Christmas, everyone," I said. "Merry Christmas, Dad," Sophia said, leaning her head on my shoulder. And for the first time in my life, the words felt real. We've reached the end of Joshua and Sophia's journey, but the real-life implications of this story go far beyond a YouTube video. This story wasn't just about money or a college fund. It was about boundaries. Many of us are taught that family is everything, and that we must endure toxicity simply because we share DNA. Joshua's story challenges that. It teaches us that enabling bad behavior isn't love. It's fear. By cutting off the financial lifeline, Joshua didn't just save his money. He forced his brother to face reality and his parents to face their bias. The most important lesson here is about protecting the innocent. As parents or guardians, our primary duty is to protect our children, not just from physical harm, but from emotional degradation. When Joshua stood up for Sophia, he broke a generational cycle of abuse. He showed her that she was worth fighting for. That is the greatest inheritance he could ever leave her. I want to hear from you. What was your favorite moment in Joshua's transformation? Was it when he cut the phone lines? When he bought the debt? Or was it the quiet moment at the end with the stocking? Please leave a comment with the word good if you think Joshua made the right choice, or share one boundary you've had to set in your own life to protect your peace. Your stories inspire me every day. Don't forget to like and subscribe so we can keep sharing these powerful truths together. You are the chosen family of this channel. Thank you for listening.